You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
Brinna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners something interesting about yourself.
Something interesting about myself. Yeah. Now, is this like professional or?
It could be personal. Anything? It could be professional. Let's get to know Brinna Kelly here.
Let's see. Well, I reside in a condo in Los Angeles with my 3 feline wards. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a very fancy way of saying I'm a crazy cat lady and I have a cat.
Yeah. How long have you had these cats?
Oh God, my oldest, I've had her for 14 years. So long time. Yeah.
What do you think about guys with cats?
I like guys with cats.
Okay.
I think it takes a very considerate, sensitive person, a man or a woman to have a cat, because I think cats are sensitive creatures.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm an animal lover, so anybody with who loves animals is a wonderful person in my book.
Yeah, no, I have a buddy with a cat, and we always give him a hard time, but he also got a dog.
Oh, really?
We got a dog recently, so now it kind of like, it evens it out. But I always love to ask that question about the cat world. So, okay. Well, hey, again, thanks for jumping on. I know we're all very busy here, but I would love to learn a little bit more about your company, 501 Pictures. Is that right?
That is true. That is correct. Yeah.
So let's talk about what your company does. What kind of value does that bring to the marketplace? And get a little background about your company and 501 Productions. Or Pictures, I'm sorry.
501 Pictures is a production company, and we make independent films. I am a filmmaker, and I've been in the industry for 25 years.
Oh, awesome. Wow. So how did you get
into it? Ever since I was 11.
Yeah, how'd you get into it?
Oh, I was a child actor. My family were friends with a casting director, and then one day she visited and saw me just, hamming it up. And apparently when you're a kid, all you need to do is have the right look. So she cast me in commercials and then, on TV shows playing people's kids and stuff. That's how I got into the industry.
Okay.
I was very young. And yes, so now I can say I've been in the industry for 25 years, which is technically true. And then after that, I went to film school at UCLA and got into screenwriting after I graduated and got into producing independent film. And I've been doing that for the last about 10 years.
Tell our listeners, if they're not too sure, what exactly categorizes an independent film.
Independent film. Okay, well, an independent film means it's not a studio film. So it was not paid for or backed by a studio. It is financed and produced independently. And that could mean any number of things. It could mean a small production company like my company produced it and financed it. It could mean that it was crowdsourced and financed via Kickstarter or something like that. It could mean that it was paid for by a rich uncle. It could mean that it was paid for by yourself. Basically, anything not tied to the studio system that is produced on the independent side of things. Basically, it means the filmmaker went out and found the financing themselves somehow in various different ways. Kind of all are categorized as independent film, even though it varies greatly, and the budget also varies greatly. Technically, one of the most expensive independent films ever produced was that movie Valerian, which cost $200 million, but that was not associated with a studio. That was produced by Luc Besson, and I think just his friends, and they came up with the money for it. So technically, that is an independent film.
Right. Yeah. I guess so. The definition is really kind of just private funded,
exactly.
private backing, private funded,
or privately made, or just backed by someone who's not a studio. Because most films actually are independent films ratio wise. If you think about it, the big studios really only put out a couple of dozen films every year in theaters, and they're the ones that everybody they're aggressively advertised and everybody knows about them. But on the independent side, many more times those films get made every year, and they go on the film festival circuit, and then they are distributed via streaming or on one of the streaming platforms like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, and now Facebook has their own. Everybody has a new streaming platform, or they're distributed via DVD sales or iTunes, Amazon. There are many different routes that films can take now, as far as distribution goes, reaching the audience, with streaming and smaller distribution companies propping up left and right, wanting to be part of the game and taking content and distributing it themselves.
Right.
So yeah, so I would say actually, and most people don't know this, most movies that are made every year, a mass majority of them are actually independent films.
And when did you start 501 Pictures?
501 Pictures was started 5 years ago
Okay.
when I produced my first feature film called The Midnight Man.
Okay,
So,
great. And so
yes.
tell me a little bit about that entrepreneur journey. So you decided, when did you decide to jump in and say, I'm gonna do this myself?
Well, when I realized that filmmaking, because, you know, I started off as a screenwriter and I'm still a screenwriter most of the time. But when I realized that if you're just putting work out there and hoping that someone else will make it for you, that's kind of like playing the lottery. And it's all
Right.
well and good, except the likelihood of anything happening are not high, let's just say. And I looked around and saw all of my screenwriter friends doing the same thing, playing the lottery, you know, submitting to agents, submitting to managers, submitting to studios, writing specs. And you know, the lingo is specs, meaning writing scripts for free and hoping someone will pick it up, and then submitting to competitions and contests and doing all of that. And I was doing that too. And I just realized that, excuse me.
Sure.
Sorry. I apologize. Los Angeles has been on fire lately, so there's a
Yes,
lot of
no problem at all.
I apologize. Anyway, I was saying, I realized that playing the lottery is well and good if you want to do that, but it's not really a quality game. It's more of a luck game. You have to
Right.
hope that the right person, because the right script for the right person is oftentimes what gets things moved forward. You have to hope that the right person reads it, who's interested in the subject matter you're writing about, and then that person's in a position to do something about your script. And even then, I've seen people with scripts who have been optioned. Basically, some company has said, well, we'll try to get it made, and picked it up, and then years go by and still nothing happens. Or, you know, like I know personally that John Wells Productions, one of the bigger production companies in Los Angeles, has an entire closet full of spec scripts, just drawers and drawers of them that they have acquired over the years.
Wow.
Because they thought it was good enough to buy, but not good enough to make. So it just sits on a shelf somewhere. So I realized, you know, I'm not going to keep playing the lottery.
Right.
I'm going to approach this with a more business-minded, approach, because my father is a business person. He's an importer and exporter of lumber, so he does that kind of business. And he did
Okay.
tell me, just growing up with him, I did kind of absorb a business sensibility, and I thought it would be better to put a product out there instead of a kind of hope of a product, because
Right.
a script is really just, it's theoretical. It's putting something out there and hoping someone will turn it into something that can then be marketable and that can then go out to a public. Instead, I want to just cut out that middleman, which is such a huge lottery system, and do that myself. So I started looking into, all right, how do you get an actual film made? How do you make a product and basically be that person for yourself? And that's when I decided to pursue actually being a producer. I was not originally a producer. You know, I went to school for filmmaking and for screenwriting, and before that I was an actress for many years as a kid. So this is a new skill that I had to acquire in order to further my career, and I'm glad I did. So I decided basically to become a producer.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of our listeners sometimes are always thinking about, do I take the plunge, right? Do I take that dive into entrepreneurialism? And that's hard. And I asked that question. I'd like to really try to give some value to our listeners, and having, I think what the lottery analogy you're using is an absolute in all businesses in terms of risk. Without great risk, there's no great reward. And I think JFK said that. And then the reality, and the truth is that some people want to sit back and see a true confirmation that it's going to work, and it's just not there.
Well,
right?
yeah, exactly. I agree with that. any kind of risk, and this is any kind of entrepreneurship, whether it be, I mean, an indie film is just another product that you're putting in there. It could be a restaurant, it could be, it could be an online company, whatever service or product you're providing, that's business, that's entrepreneurship. And the hardest part about it personally is we, as kind of human beings, we all go to school and we are taught a certain set of rules. Basically, if you work this hard, you will get this amount of reward. If you study, you'll get a good grade, you'll get a high score, and then that's going to lead to other things. That's going to lead to going to a good college. So we're kind of trained to believe that and think, well, if I just put in this much, then I'm owed or I'm due this grade or this test score, or, this college. So we grow up kind of thinking that. And then if you go out in the world after you graduate and after you're out of school, if you land a job that's, corporatized or that's very structured like that, it kind of works the same way. You put in this many hours, you show up from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 every day, and you get a paycheck. And then if you, hit that benchmark, then you get a promotion or you get a bonus. So for some people, that structure is very important, and it's comforting because it's the same thing that we're used to. But if you go into business for yourself, the hardest part is that goes away. Yeah. There are no guarantees. There are no safety nets anymore. You can work and work and work and work and work and put in all of the effort in the world. And then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, wait a minute, but in school, this is how it worked, or in that job, this is how it worked. I should be due a certain amount of reward, but that's not the case. You can work for years and see very little in terms of things coming back to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're failing. It's just that the rules are different. There are no rules anymore. So, so if you believe in yourself enough and you believe that you can cast off that system and look into the abyss and know that you have the strength to make something for yourself. Absolutely. That's business.
I think that's a great point.
That's entrepreneurship. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's just like, is it rolling the dice a little bit? Yes. But are the odds a lot better than the lottery? 100%.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where, bet on yourself. And that's what I think entrepreneurs do is at the end of the day, if you feel you're confident in yourself, then you're going to be in good shape. And a lot of that has to do with limiting beliefs. Oh my God, what if this? And then what if that happens? Or I don't have a monthly amount of income coming in. A lot of entrepreneurs start while they're working full time. And I think that's a great idea if they can.
Yeah.
But jumping in, having some calculated risks are important, but you're going to fail, and fail on your way to success, and realizing that success leaves clues is such a big deal. So I'm sure you probably had some mentors or you learned. And I always tell people like, hey, we're so blessed to have the Googles of the world and the YouTubes of the world, where when people ask me sometimes how I learned entrepreneurialism, I was like, Google's my MBA. Okay. Like Google, YouTube, you name it. I learned it. And, I read a lot. And so when it came down to understanding that success did leave clues, I looked to find out where I wanted to be and try to reverse engineer some of those things. But I think sometimes for some of our listeners, taking that dive is probably the very first part that might be scary. But once you do, you baby step to success and you start enjoying the journey rather than just the result. And when you do get there, it is a huge exciting pat on the back. And sometimes as a solopreneur like you might be, you kind of got to pat yourself on the back, right? And
you
got to celebrate.
Yeah, you got to take the victories where you can. And also remember that I think what you said was very, very important is to enjoy the journey. Because here's the thing, if you're going to business for yourself, then you have a dream. It's the thing that you want to do most in your life. And guess what? If you actually go into business for yourself, you're getting to pursue that. That in itself is such a privilege. People were sometimes asking me, well, how do you get through it when things don't work out, when, projects fall apart or
Sure.
Sometimes, and it's true, it's heartbreaking because you can work for years on a project and it may not come together, and at least in my industry. But I just have to kind of at the end of the day remind myself that most people don't get to pursue their favorite thing. They don't get to work every day on something that is their dream. And I get to do that. And that is such a privilege in itself. And I'm so lucky to be in a position where I'm even in the pursuit, that any struggle or any bumps in the road along the way is just part of the ride.
Right.
And
yeah.
hey, I'm still here. We're still here. We're still doing it. And
Right.
that's a lot more than a lot of people have the courage and the strength and really, and the will and the privilege to be able to do.
Right. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And
Exactly.
so
Exactly. Yeah.
right. And I think just realizing that it's not easy, but also realizing that it is possible, and that there are people out. You don't have to be brilliant. You have to be resilient. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's what it comes down. It's just a stick with it, and I promise you, it's going to go well. Stick with it, and I can promise you, it's going to happen. But the sticking with it part sometimes can be tough. Why do you think there's entrepreneurs out there, in your opinion, in your professional opinion as an entrepreneur, do you think give up? Like, why do you think they give up on their businesses and their dreams when they try to start something and they stop?
Oh gosh. I mean, sometimes I guess if you don't see a way through, and again, I think it wears you down. There are times when I've wanted to quit as well, because if you don't see, because there's no clear path forward. And psychologically, that's daunting, to be in a place and thinking, I'm not guaranteed anything. So I could just be stuck in this limbo forever. Even though, if you really think about it, that's not true. But in the moment, that could certainly feel like the case. I think psychologically, that could wear a lot of people down if they don't see a way forward or a path forward out of, kind of like if they're in a bad spot and they don't really see how to walk out of that. But the truth is, I've been there, and sometimes you just have to keep walking.
Right. Give us a time where you have been there. Give us a time where you felt you've hit rock bottom, where you felt like it's close to it, and you had to just bring yourself out of it and realize, like, hey, it was a learning opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple of years ago, before I produced and my current film, which is going to be out soon, I had worked on another film, which I spent years on. This was right after the first film that I produced that came out, called The Midnight Man. And then after that, I had written a script that I loved, that everybody loved. And I was trying to get it set up. I had a couple of business partners in the endeavor, a foreign sales agent and agency, and then a production company that was going to be co-producers with my company. And we had worked, and this is something I poured my heart into, and we had gotten to the point where we had attached several, big name actors to the script. So this was going to be my breakout, like we had Ron Perlman and Carrie Elways, attached to the script. And the budget was supposed to have been generated by pre-sales off of their names. And in theory, it should have all worked, but the foreign sales company that was supposed to bring those pre-sales in had an internal shakeup. That was something that I could not foresee at all.
Wow.
And then that made my domestic partners nervous. And then before I knew it, the whole thing just kind of fell apart right before my eyes. And sometimes that'll happen. You can work for years on something. You can do everything right from your end, but something will happen along the way outside of your control that you have no way of getting ahead of, and that's going to derail a project or your business somehow. You're going to take a hit because of it, and it's unfair when it happens.
So what happened at that? So these guys, I'm sure that each actor has, and if I understand the back end of just
I had to pay them. Yeah, I
still got to pay them.
Basically 10% of what they would have earned on the film, because they had that amount pay or play, and that had to come out of 501 Pictures. So yeah, that was a loss financially that I am still trying to recoup completely.
Sure.
And that was a loss, and that was not good for our reputation, because you don't want to go to big name actors and then not be able to have the project come together. So that was difficult there, and it was something that I had to recoup from. And then that was also a loss of two separate different business partners, because I've learned that those are not people that I wish to go back and work with again.
Right.
So it's difficult when that happens, and it's going to happen. It's the price of doing business. And when that happened, I basically regrouped and I said, okay, I can't pull the budget together for a project like that without partners like that, but without the other two partners, but that didn't work out. So what can I do? what can we do by ourselves right now? Because we are ourselves a production company. And I wrote, and I had to start from scratch, wrote and put together a much smaller film with a much smaller budget, with a fraction of the budget of the big one. And I said, well, let's make this instead, so that the entire year isn't a wash. And that turned out to be a film that turned out to be a festival darling. We won, awards all over the world with it, as it turns out, because people really responded to the film, and that is the film that is going to come out in 2 weeks. So
there's the light. There's the light at the end of the tunnel. What you learn.
Exactly. Sometimes you just have to regroup and figure something else out. And you know what? That's going to turn out to be the thing that works for you. And Brinna, it's not going to change your life, but it's going to keep you going.
Life Nation, we're all striving towards different goals. Maybe your goal is to finally quit the 8 to 5 grind, quit your job, or take the next step with your existing business. Whatever the goal may be, regardless of your reasons, if you are serious about taking the next step and finally trying to build the life that you deserve, the life that you want to live, take the leap of faith. Go to michaellevis.com and let's discuss your goals and life. It's 100% free. There's no obligation. It's michaellevis.com. Schedule a quick call. I'd love to help. But you can probably look back at that and say, what did I learn from this process? There's a couple of things that you mentioned that I think are really good sound bombs that I'd like to give to the Business and Life Nation listening to this, which is you're gonna have those situations where a couple of things happen. One, you know who to separate yourself from, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be a part. You can't be a part of everyone just because they have success. They might have their own angle of success or their own ideas, but they might not align with yours. And so learning now how to pick those partners in your pictures, I believe, I'm sure has been a great growing pain, but still you put your back against the wall, you refocused, and you created an awesome shorter film with a lower budget, hopefully more profitable, and realize, hey, maybe I carved out a new niche. Maybe there's something new I can focus on. And business owners do that all the time and realize like, oh my God, this was terrible. But you learn from that so much, and realizing that those failures create so much more in success and ROI. If you had to break down a chart of failures to success and how you learn from those and how they built up, you likely are going to see that ROI from that failure is going to be tenfold, because you learned from it, you went with it, and you just shifted a little bit. You shifted your mindset on how you're going to be able to actually work with people and or what kind of films possibly that you might end up doing down the road.
Exactly. You gotta learn to roll with the punches a bit, and you have to be able to keep going. So, sometimes it's just refocusing, reconceptualizing. Basically, I couldn't make the $750,000 movie just now, so I'm going to go make a lower one that I can make. And it's smaller, and the return on investment will be smaller, but there will be some. And then that will lead to the next one, and just keep building. So if you take a knockback, keep walking forward.
That's right. That's cash flow. You get something in the bank, you keep going, you can eat, and that means you can keep working. That's right. It's good. So
that's really the key.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if you can't do something big, do something small. If you try doing something big and it didn't work out, see what you still can do and do that. Yeah,
create the positive out of those negatives. That's awesome. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what are you currently excited about for 501 Pictures right now?
Well, 501 Pictures has, I have a film coming out. It's called The Fair, and it'll be available November 19th on Blu-ray and streaming. So I'm very excited about that. It's a science fiction film, very similar to The Twilight Zone. So I hope that that resonates with audiences. We've won a lot of awards, and we've gotten a lot of good reviews and positive buzz.
Cool.
So and I'm hoping that off the back of that film, that I can make. I have another script that I'm very, very excited about. This time, it's a $250,000 budget that I'm looking for. I have the lead of the show Spartacus attached to play the lead, Liam McIntyre. He's a good friend of mine. Awesome. And oftentimes in indie film, that's kind of how it works. You have, you get an actor, someone who is, and it's comparable to the budget that you're seeking. You don't have to go out and get Bruce Willis every time,
Right.
But if you get an actor who, can kind of carry the amount of money that you're going to spend on the film, that's in a world with little guarantees, that's about as good of a guarantee as you can get. So I am trying to build financing and get that off the ground. And here's the thing that I would say as far as that goes, which is how do you find financing, right? How do you get people to buy into your product and whatever it is that you're offering? How do you get people to care about it? And I have found that it is easier for me if I treat my friends like professionals. And I think that was great advice that I've gotten from people that I like to maybe pass on here, which is that don't treat your friends like your friends in a business sense. Treat your friends like professionals, which basically that means don't go and beg people for help. Incentivize people to help you. You know, like, here's how independent film financing works. You got to find either a company or a private individual with money that they want to invest in independent film, and then you have to basically convince the person that your film with your cast and your genre and your script is a good investment. Now, you can try to convince people several ways. One is with pre-sales or having an actor attached that a sales company, that a sales agency has already told you, well, this actor is worth this amount of money, so you can invest that amount of money into them or less, and you know, in domestic and international sales, they will at least make back your budget. And then, you know, and the genre also goes a long way to convincing people, because, you know, you can have genre statistics like, you know, action films pull in this much if they hit these criteria, horror films pull in this much if they hit these criteria. It's very much a business. But oftentimes you're not going to know that person yourself. You need someone to help you reach that person. Yeah. So instead of asking that person to help you out of the kindness of their heart, no matter how good a friend they are, don't treat your friends like friends, treat them like professionals. Cut them in on a piece of the profit. Cut them in on a piece of, or give them a commission. There's a reason why, if you look at independent film, there's like 7 or 8 EPs listed. Now, the reason for that is because they probably piecemealed their budget together, and then every single one of those people who brought in a portion of that money probably also had a liaison, like someone acting like the film's agent, essentially. So basically, if I know someone that I know has a connection with someone else who's interested in film, I go to that person, my friend, and I say to him, if you help me bring in any part of this budget, I will cut you in for 7.5%. And I always go with 7.5% because it is higher than real estate agents' commission, but it's not so high that it's going to cripple my budget. So basically, right. I write in his commission and I say to him, you get that off the top. You know, you don't have to wait until the movie is out and makes money, because I know that takes a year or so. Yeah. You get immediate reward for helping me. And that way, and now that person is incentivized to actually get, because who doesn't want to make, say like 250,000 is how much I'm asking for. That's over $18,000 at 7.5%, you know, that somebody potentially can make before the movie is even shot. You know, if somebody had that commission, and if somebody knew that they were going to get that and they had that contact, now they're much more incentivized to go out there and try to get that person on board, because they stand to benefit, and they stand to benefit immediately. So sometimes immediate incentivization to me has yielded way better results than just going to someone because they're your friend and they should want to help you, or if you're promising them something that seems far-fetched. Like if I had promised that person, well, you get 10% of the back end. That's theoretical money, because what if your movie doesn't make money, or, you know, and that's money that's that they're not going to see for a year and a half. Right. So what I found that's way more beneficial, that yields way better results, is if you can incentivize people, and if you can somehow do it like on the front end, if you can somehow do it immediately. Right. And anybody brings you in financing, they get a piece of it right away. It's fair, and it works.
I think that's a great idea, and I think there's how that equates to business, Brinna, which is smart in terms of immediate ROI. People like to see that. I mean, if you're listening out there and you have $250,000 and want to make 7.5 points on it fast, let's contact me and I'll put you in touch. I mean, that's a really good ROI, and more importantly, the fact that it's immediate. I'm not sure how immediate, and you can discuss that in the terms down the road, but really that is a really cool model
Basically,
because it's your
when I get
confident
the
level.
money, I cut you a check. And there's a reason why real estate agents are always so eager to sell your home. Why? Because they're getting up to 6% of it, right?
Right.
And that's if you think about it, that commission is huge.
Yep.
So basically, turn all of the people, turn your contacts into your own agents and liaisons, and this is how you do it.
Then is the remainder of the 250, for example, given out in a term, or how's that work? Is it all going to be based? Is there any other additional incentive on percentage and points, or is your model 7.5 and then it's over the course of when they get their initial investment back, I guess?
When the investors get their investment back, and then the movie starts to make money, the liaison, basically the agent, the person who helped finance it, will get a piece of those profits too. They'll get points on the back end, but points on the back end, that's down the line. What I'm talking about is immediately incentivizing people so that if they have a contact, they are much more eager and willing to help you, because who doesn't want $18,000 for making a phone call?
Yeah,
it could
that's great.
Potentially be that easy, but for your business, that is huge, and that is creating an opportunity for yourself that you wouldn't normally have.
That's a lot of companies' bottom line net. That's a bottom line net profit.
It's worth
right?
it. It's worth the 7.5%. I always write an extra 7.5% into the budget as basically just my fee for bringing the budget in. I can squeeze 7.5% out of any budget, and the movie will be fine.
Okay.
But
so
and yes, we're talking. There's profit sharing. There's points on the back end, but that's not immediate. So I've really realized that some of the people who hustle the most for you are your agents. Your real estate agents who sell your property, because they have an immediate reward waiting for them. They know as soon as they close that escrow, they're getting 6%. And
you're right. They have a quick ROI. I mean, that's the whole. That's part of the game. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's shift gears a little bit here. The podcast business and life, building the life that you want to live. A lot of us entrepreneurs sometimes see that and also work towards it. How are you currently planning on, or how are you building the life that you want to live, or have you built it? Do you feel like what is the end of the tunnel, or light at the end of the tunnel for you?
Well, for me, filmmaking is what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. So as long as I can spend one more day pursuing being a filmmaker, I'm happy. And I feel like that's the work-life balance that you need to create. You don't go into business for yourself because you're tacit about something, because you kind of want to do something. You take that plunge, you take basically that, you roll that dice because it's something you need to do. And it's something that will hurt you more, and you will feel more regret at the end of your days if you didn't take that step than if you had. I mean, those are the people we're talking to, right?
Right.
So, my work-life balance, I love my work, so I don't see it as it's not something that I need to necessarily take time away from. There's nothing I'd rather be doing than this work, and I often ask myself that, because it is very, very tough. The competition is fierce, and it is not easy work. So I do often ask myself, is there anything, I just say, Brinna, is there anything else that you would rather do right now that you would be as fulfilled doing as filmmaking? And if I ever have an answer to that question, I would actually go do that, because filmmaking is hard. But so far, and I ask myself that often, but so far I have not been able to have a good answer to that question yet.
Sure. And I mean,
this is still the most fulfilling thing I can imagine doing. So
there it is, fulfillment.
That's what
it's
the
about.
light at the end of the tunnel is hopefully getting to continue to make films.
Good. That's great. Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great answer. In terms of all of that, before we ask the final question, where can people find you if they want to invest in a film, or if they want to follow what you're doing?
Well, I am on all of the social medias. I am a little bit older than the social media generation, so I'm not great at it, but I am out there. I'm at on Twitter, which is just at Brinna Kelly. I have a unique enough name that Brinna Kelly is usually not taken. So I'm on
cool.
Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just look for Brinna Kelly. And 501 Pictures is on IMDb. My company information is on IMDb if you want to reach me that way. So yeah, just if anybody is interested in talking to me more about just film and filmmaking and the film industry in general, please hit me up.
Yeah.
On the various social media. And also, I'll just put this out there because this is, the podcast itself is for entrepreneurs and the information is out there. You can also email me. It's Brinna at 501pictures.com.
And that's BRINNA.
BRINNA at 501pictures.com. That's my company email. So that's a way to reach me as well.
Perfect. Now, last question. Out of all of your successes and failures in your business, what is the one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners who are current entrepreneurs and or aspiring?
I would say, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Polite society sometimes tells us to shut up and not say anything, but when it comes to your own business, when it comes to protecting what you've built and what you've worked hard to build, don't be afraid to call people out if they are hurting you. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions and to take, and to not accept the tacit answers because in your heart that that's not enough. You gotta be a fighter. And, when I was in elementary school, there was a saying on the blackboard that I always remember. And it basically says, it's silly and it's cliched, but it actually makes sense, but it actually is true. And it basically just says, walk your own path, because the man who follows someone else's footsteps will never leave his own footprints.
I love that. Who's writing your book? Business and Life Nation. That's right. What's the next page for you? And I think that's
exactly. So go leave some footprints, man.
That's
and that's what entrepreneurship is.
Great. Well, Brinna, I really appreciate, that's you got some great value bombs there. I love the story and I really appreciate your time on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Mike. And this was fun.
Thank you. Good luck and keep rocking out there.
Yeah. You too, sir.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.